are really concerned about the quality of life in quite a few people. Now, I want to take some of the skill sets that I have acquired over the years and bring them to bear to increase the quality of life. A lot of folks, very simple solutions, right? And I don't like the complexity of computers that do absolutely nothing. You guys have faster than light calculators in your homes, and people are just talking on them and playing games. That's ridiculous, right? I believe in utilizing technology for better reasons than that. I really do. And so I've been busy lately with some things in the back burner, but a nonprofit won't do it. It won't do it. I need to be free to give whatever I want to give, to develop whatever I want to develop, to, without restriction. I need to be able to do that. You can't do that if you're a profit. That means I'll pay taxes. You better believe that. But we'll do a lot of R&D, lots of R&D, right? And of course, any donations received are still tax deductible, right? But they're not as, because it's not locked like a nonprofit would be, right? That they're not, stringent. It's like given to another person, because I reviewed those tax laws intently. Now, we'll pay based on and plus we're going to have products on the web to support this ministry, not for you guys, but these products will go to contractors, other companies. Of course, you guys are going to know what those products are, but they'll support operations of what we're doing here. So if we made $200,000 from a product and we went to go buy 4 homes or something like that, then we can do that without any legal interference. You guys understand that? So I have to have that flexibility to be able to do that. Plus, with a nonprofit, by the law, people who have a nonprofit there's certain things they just simply can't do. There are mandates on what they can say and what they can't say, and I can't do that. My mouth can't be restricted like that. And they do sneaky stuff because they know that they can threaten nonprofits under different legal categories, and those categories need not be bound to us, right? So there you go. It's of great concern to me, and I'll tell you, I didn't want to look at the border, right? Because I'm not ready. Let's just say I'm not ready for this, for what I believe the Lord showed me to come to pass yet. I'm just not ready for that. But just like in that dream, so is the border right now, because I looked at that today with sorrowful eyes, by the way. It's a dangerous situation, a very sad situation. It really shouldn't be, and it really has to turn around. I don't believe it's going to turn around through government. I don't believe that. I believe it's going to turn around through voices like yours, not from government. All they're going to do is talk about what could have happened and what should have happened and what didn't happen, right? But just to refresh you about this little dream I had that really bothered me, because I forgot what time I came on and said that. I think that Flasher or Mayor would know. I can't remember. Anyway, I came on air to talk about that dream because at the time, right before the California's landmass tilted upward, there was a big crowd at the border. I told everybody at the time I did not know what that was about. I see a lot of people there. There's a lot of people. Somebody was there with a megaphone too. I see a lot of people there. And something drew a lot of people down to the base. Just a lot of people at the border. But I was looking today and I was like, oh my Lord, please tell me this is not it. This shouldn't be it. Because also, in conjunction with the border, there had been some earthquakes, and there was specifically a volcano erupting in Mexico, right? So with the eruptions in Mexico, one was in South America, but one was in Mexico at the same time. So it was earthquakes and a volcano down in that direction with with something drawing people down to the border. Of course, I'm looking today and I see all these folks at the border, right? I heard about it. I can hear things. That didn't mean I want to look. I just did not want to see that. But today I did, and my stomach somewhat dropped because of the bridge. Because of the bridge. That's why my stomach dropped. Of all things, the bridge. My stomach dropped. Because I saw in the dream, I could see a person talking. It was a big crowd of people down there, and they were on both sides of the fence here. Both sides. So today, the way it looks right now, you see a crowd on one side, not both sides. This was on both sides of the fence, a big crowd. So obviously, the way people are going is going to be some sort of something that will happen down there. It's really unfortunate what's happening at the border. But right before what happened in California happened, we had that border problem. But here's the thing. When that problem was going on, it was like I was transported to California. I could see everything in California. And they were talking about everybody leaving California. And I saw one of those little half cars driving on the highway. And I could see these kids were doing this weird, funny-looking thing. But people also started talking. They were almost happy that something passed, right? They were convinced. They were like, it's not going to happen. I could see the clock. I knew what time it hit and everything else. But they were surprised it didn't happen. And the setting was in Southern California. The setting was. But they were happy it didn't happen. A smell was coming from the ocean, right? So listen to me. That means something was happening at the border. Obviously, somebody had been talking about something happened to cause people to worry about an earthquake in California. But they were almost relieved when they felt almost like a tremor, but it left. There was nothing, right? A time passed and there was nothing, so they were almost relieved. But a smell came from the oceans. They could smell it. Everybody could smell it. And that smell got stronger. Everybody started to wonder. All of a sudden, there was a small rumbling that took place. Not a big one, a small one. So it wasn't a big, giant earthquake at first. It was a small one. But it kept going. It kept going until everything began to tilt. And it kept going. And people they didn't have their balance in the streets. And they also noticed the lack of animal noises, period. I do remember a crisp, clear sky. The sun looked like it diluted the entire sky. So it was a very different sun, but nothing was in the sky, nothing. And it hit, and when it hit, it didn't stop. It destroyed the highways. It destroyed the landmass, just began to tilt up. It was horrible. Some of the buildings still stuck in the earth. They didn't move. They were going up with the land masses. The screams were horrific. It was a disaster, absolute disaster. But it all began right before that happened. Somebody obviously was talking about earthquakes in California, and California was happy a time passed, which makes me think that somebody's going to come out with a prediction about an earthquake. And it will likely be an official prediction about an earthquake, a type of scare. But then the time passed. It just passed. Also, when COVID-19 was at its max and nobody was really out in the streets, I was thinking to myself, well, that's not going to happen. That's good. Nothing was happening at the border. As soon as COVID-19 goes down, we have a border crisis, a problem at the border, which is unfortunate. And it's building every single day, right? Every single day. Come to find out today that there is an event that will take place at the border in a couple of weeks. I didn't want to hear that either, but there's some type of event that will take place at the border, almost like a counter demonstration. I know they're going to add security measures down there because they expect a lot more people coming to that little section. And that's going to exacerbate a problem we don't need, right? For a lot of those people, they're taking them and they're flying them back to Haiti. These are Haitians coming over there in large amounts. And it's filling up. I believe the count now is over. 15,000 people are down there, probably more than that. Only 200, a little over 200 were actually let into the country and given a court date. It's a terrible issue. I know what the news is saying. I know what they normally say, so they probably have not changed what they're saying. It's a terrible problem because all of you are familiar with it. And this is what, instead of, many people are blowing up about it because somehow they believe it's going to infringe upon their way of life. In other words, people don't want to lose anything. But I'm going to share with you something else, a different train of thought, right, that has nothing to do with what the media is describing. So I hope you hear me on this, and I hope you can relate to this. In fact, this is one of the main reasons for coming on tonight, is to talk to you about this border issue. But all of you have been in a circumstance where you have really needed something, right? You really needed something, and you set your heart on getting it. And you saw an avenue to acquire what you needed so badly, right? All of us have done this. And then you had that hope enhanced by someone telling you, oh, yes, if you do this, this will work, right? And you really were hoping, you praying it would work, and all of a sudden time passes, you start doing everything that you could do to make sure that whatever it is worked. Maybe you were in a financial problem, maybe you were in a marital problem, whatever the case was. You attempted to do something that somebody suggested because you wanted it so desperately to work out, right? So you do everything required. But all of a sudden, when the day comes, when the deadline arrives, nothing takes place. In fact, as it draws close to the deadline, your stomach quivers. And all hope seems to be lost. And sure enough, when that day hits, it does not work out. It doesn't work out. And almost abruptly, with an abruptness, your spirit changes. This negative sense of worth comes in and feels like your whole life just fell apart. Now, many of us have been in that predicament. We've been in that predicament. Many of you have had a promise upon you that you really needed that promise to come true. And it never did. And I'm talking about those situations that can really break your heart, that can really mess you up, that can really cost you everything. And many of you have paid a price because what you hoped so badly would come to be, it did not come to be. And all because, listen to me, all someone had to do was come to you and say, listen, don't do it that way. Don't do it that way. That's it. Somebody, in fact, there are moments in my life I wish someone would have chewed me out and hit me in the head with a mallet and said, listen, don't do it that way. That's foolish. It's irresponsible. But there's another way, right? Because I've been in so many situations with bad advice, causing me to hope in something that would never take place from trusted individuals. And it never happened, right? And it really cost me something. I've been in those predicaments, and so have you guys. Well, listen to this. Imagine your home is threatened. And it's getting to the point where you can't even raise children where you are. And somebody of high authority, right, throws a hint your way and says, hey, for those people who come here, we're going to go ahead and process you, this, that, and the other, and you'll eventually make it through. Well, they don't actually tell you that, but they don't tell you they're going to boot you out of the country either, or out of the neighborhood, or out of the new place. And so with a false hope, and with everything you have, with all the money you have, you pay someone, you gather all the money you have and all your belongings. And from person to person, you spend your money on transportation to get your family to what you think is a sanctuary. And all you say to yourself is, if I can make it there with my family, I'll eventually be okay. And it's better than the place I left. And so you toss caution to the wind. You risk everything you have to go somewhere else. And you get there to this other place. They turn you around and sing you back from where you came from. Now listen to me. That broken hope, that hope that the people have, the hope that the folks have, trying to get to America, they do that. They do it because nobody is saying, it's not going to work out for you, so don't even do it. That's not what they're saying. They're disputing it. And people are unsure what to make of it. But you got people out there spending every last dime. There's a gentleman who had $800. That's it. The money he had was the equivalent of $800. He paid 3 or 4 people to make it to Texas, to the border. Spent up all of his money, lost all of his personal, he lost a lot. There is no home to go back to because he spent all of his money with his 2 kids, only to get flown back to Haiti with nothing. Now he's back in Haiti without the $800. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? So he was in Haiti with $800. Now he's back in Haiti with zero. With 2 children. Folks, do you see how that can really mess somebody's life up by not telling them the responsible thing? We have an issue at it's obviously it's not going to come from the government. I'll be straight with you. It is hurting those Haitians more than it hurts anybody else. Because they're spending everything they have on this. Most of them don't make it, by the way. Only 70% of those folks who start this journey make it. The rest, many of them die along the way. Many of them just don't make it. Do you know they stay over in other places with no money, no food for weeks? Because they run out of money, hoping they can come to America. And the scenario is this. They come here knowing someone, a family member or something like that, trying to contact them so they can eventually be held by authorities, contact somebody they know, and then they let them go to that family and they say, you got a court date to make, right? That's what they normally do. When they have somebody inside to the rest, they just turn around and tell them to go back. Because no one is saying no one is saying on the media an official statement. Don't come to America. You're going to be turned around. You're going to waste your time and money coming here. That's not what they're saying. You know what they're doing? They're disputing it. And when you dispute something, you have not said no. And when you don't say no, people get a false hope. And when you have a false hope and you spend your last dime towards that false hope, then that's like aiding and abetting someone to commit suicide. That's what it's like. So they escape one horror to go to a certain death. Or escape a horror to lose everything they have and go right back to it. And all it would take is a voice of responsibility. To say, no, there are proper channels you have to go through. Showing up at the border is not going to do it. It won't do it. See, as a result of this, and we just got over COVID-19, there's some things, there's some facts a lot of people don't think about. But I tell you, my heart is with the people. Because there's so many broken people that get turned around. They lose everything because somebody else said, oh, yeah, if you make it to America, they'll have no choice. They'll have no choice to bring you in, and this is how it works. But see, they lose everything they have. Everything. And it seems like the ones that have the resources that show up, there's a reason they have those. How can you come from a poor nation, not know anybody, and have large amounts of resources? How is that possible? Well, you know what the answer is. No voice of responsibility is telling them, don't come here. President Trump did. He did. You know what happened as a result of that? People say, I'm not taking that chance. Not with Trump in the White House. That's exactly what they said. That's why the border was under control. Leadership, obviously, is not going to say anything. Somebody has to raise awareness to that situation to tell these other countries, don't do it. You're going to be stuck like the rest of them for weeks in a horror story. Don't do it. See, I know for a fact that's one of the reasons a specific drone was flying over the people. I know they have their job to do and they have to get ratings. The underlying story is if the other nations could see the problem at the border, they would start telling people, don't go there. That's a stalemate. Don't do it. It's not going to work. Right? Which would save lives. But the FAA grounded that drone. Don't know how things seemingly get interpreted, but you know what we have here? Those folks in Haiti, no matter where they're from, they're human beings. They're not dogs. They're not animals. They're not bugs. They're not creatures. They're human beings. And to be complicit with a human being having hope to go to a place they can't get into and not say a word is watching a person die, being complicit with their sufferings, of which I am not. It doesn't matter to me what color they are, what their ethnic background is. They're human beings. It is inhumane to allow a person to make that journey knowing they're going to suffer at both ends of it. That's inhumane. That's called a humanitarian crisis, is what we have there. I know people have their arguments on the inside, but look at this from a humane perspective. That's inhumane. My conversation has nothing to do with anybody coming and taking away jobs or wealth or anything else. It's inhumane to allow a person to spend every dime they have and to go to a place only to be turned around and put back in the place they just left. Now they have no money going back home, and it was already hard before they left. Many of those people, when they go back, they die. They don't have anything. Their children starve to death. To death, as in die death, because they can't even get to a hospital. They don't have resources for anything, and where they were is gone. Reclaimed by somebody else. All it would take is a few announcements from officials to say, don't do it. Don't do it. Not because we don't want you here, because it's going to mean your death. It's killing people. And I'm just not complicit with that type of humanitarian crisis. It's precisely what it is. It's cruel and it's cold. Do you see how not being responsible is cold-hearted at the same time? I know a lot of people look at this and they're going to point fingers and say it's their fault, their fault. I'm not saying it like them, but it's cold-hearted to allow someone to take such a journey only to starve anyway. See, I have this strange thought. When you set up your house, and you live in that house, everybody knows it's your house. So strangers are not going to show up at the door with sleeping bags because they know it's your house. Why, though? Because they know that everybody who lives in a house is not going to tolerate somebody sleeping on their property with a sleeping bag. And so you know what people generally do? They avoid your house, don't they? They avoid your house with sleeping bags. They're not going to come down there and camp out in your front yard or anything else. Why? Because you've set up boundaries that other people respect. And on occasion, those boundaries are reinforced because something happens in the world where someone intruded beyond those boundaries and got themselves in trouble. And they report on that trouble. And then it's a reminder to everybody and said, don't do that. That doesn't work. When it comes to nation to nation, you can't just walk into any nation you want to become a part of. There are official channels. Everybody has the same argument, though. Well, it's not working. That's because half the world is trying to get into the one country. And instead of having those individuals make that journey here, that's when the Haitian government or those who know how to do things in Haiti encourage people to do something else, to build up their own nation. You see how simple a solution that is. Listen, here's a funny thing. The numbers of those who work in government never outweigh the populace. Do you know that? And a government military cannot survive without the people. That means the people outnumber the government in every capacity. The problem is, in every single land, they programmed people to believe that they're by themselves, and by yourself, you're not going to make a move. The truth is, you're not by yourself. You're among billions who think the same way you do. That is just you. And with that mindset, no one makes a move. So I'm going to give you one of Michael's prophecies. You ready? People will do something the same way for a long time. And then they'll catch on. Hope you can hear me on this. Hope you can understand this, because out of this border crisis, a type of message is going to be put together for the entire world. Sounds strange, doesn't it? People are going to begin to discover that it's a lot of them, and it's only a few of those in power. That message is going to resonate with the entirety of the world. First, because this humanitarian crisis at the U.S. border is going to turn international. Not international because of how unfair it is, or that we're kicking so many people out. No. Because of the death that will be involved. It'll become almost like a border of disgrace. Some will likely name it the killing fields. Then when the images of children dying of thirst or starvation or disease, when that circulates, people are going to say enough is enough. Yeah, they're not going to rush to our border, but they're going to say we need to make a difference right here where we are. That's going to cause people to begin to turn their backs on their own governments. By the way, that story is not original. But I just told you something that's already written. The time when the high ones, the rulers of nations, become nothing. They will be absolutely and totally disregarded. And I'll tell you something, when people realize they have that type of power, the policing structure in just about every single land will begin to break down. I wonder how many of you actually realize that. You heard that term of people being emboldened, right? That means the mechanism that keeps a person constrained will no longer be there. That means that mechanism will not be perceived as strong. That means the weapons that they have planned for the populace won't work, but that the populace will become the weapon itself. See, that's what the world's not counting on. I hope you know that. That's something you ought to know. The world is not counting on that. The world is not prepared for that. They're prepared for just about every single scenario except that one. They're not prepared for that. There are no facilities for that. And containment, that simulation and the training does not work for citizen rebellion. It doesn't work. You saw that during the Capitol problem in the U.S. And they don't have enough time to put that together because the border issue has already begun. And it's not like any other border problem we've ever had. This one is going to draw sympathy because it involves too many children. And whenever that takes place, hearts change. And a new type of anger is going to rise. And they will not see those in power in a good light, but will see them more as oppressors. That's when they'll be harshly treated. You see, you may not know this, but there's been desperate attempts to never have the populace ever realize their true potential. A control mechanism has been psychologically in place for a long time. Education institutions emphasize this all the time. I'll tell you something. With one incident that causes people to realize, you mix that with a bit of tension, throw the images of the children in there, they're not going to like what they're seeing. Children have a habit of making a situation too real. Adults, well, maybe they deserved it. Maybe they were bad. But you can't look upon a 5-year-old child and say, well, that child was going to do terrible things. You can't do it. Especially when you start to look at your own children. I hope you know that. Hope you realize and understand that even in prophecy, this throws a monkey wrench into the plans of so many of the great ones. Did you notice in prophecy how leaders, governors, all those who plan the wise ones are caught off guard by so many events that happen in prophecy? Do you know in the Bible it says they will have no answer for what's coming and what's forming? Now, it just didn't name things that happen in the heavens, but a great many things that happen here on earth. They lost absolute control. And let me ask you this. What if the authority of every nation was turned back over to the people alone? Do you know how angry and dissatisfied people are? Do you know that some people are only constrained or restrained in their speech and in their doings because of authoritative figures? But what would happen if those authoritative figures never showed up? Then you would see the true potential of your neighbor. Your neighbor's not doing anything now because there are consequences. What happens in the day when consequences don't matter? And do you know what can kickstart all of this? To see a child who is starved to death right before your eyes and nobody did a thing. I'll submit to you right now, things start happening to those children. And you know we're in the days where they televise everything. Something happens to those kids. That's going to be the final nail in the coffin. Do you understand how fast things can truly come undone like that? All because they're not saying anything. Because they would dispute rather than find a solution, because no one is sending out the message. I mean, at this point, even if it didn't matter who stood up. You know President Trump could stand up right now and make a public address and say that same thing and say, look, you're just going to be turned around, and how responsible that would actually be. Sure, people would say, well, how dare he make a public address? If he can do it, he should make it. Because if he doesn't, the numbers continue to grow. And it'll be, 28,000 in about 8 days. And of those 28,000, more children are going to die. The story is going to get out. The pictures are going to get out. And when people are trampled over, what if a cold front comes through? Hypothermia consumes people right there in that area. You know they're next to water. Little to no cover. Porta potties lined on the land. You know that's a disease environment. That's a nightmare. And since people argue about vaccinations, you know, though, a lot of those Haitians have 0 vaccinations, and they're carrying some things that require strong vaccinations for, like measles, mumps, you name it, because they don't have vaccination programs in the outskirts of most of these places. That could easily jump right across that fence. That could easily spread. So easily. And then all those who are not vaccinated with polio and things of that nature, they're going to get it, period. It will affect them. And then it will spread among the population who has no vaccination for it. Then it will mutate, become something else, in which case the rest of the vaccinations will not work. All because it seems that folks are not being very responsible and caring to their neighbor. You see, if my neighbor was across the street and they turned their lights off, and I had 4 children with 1 can of beans, and I had 1 light bulb, how can I invite that whole crew over to my house? They lost all their lights, but I got 1 light bulb and 1 little can of beans for all the children. I can't accommodate them. We're going to have to hunker down and watch after each other. And those who have resources left, they have to do the best of what they have with them. But they also have to apply things to the situation. If a person has a place to live, and it may be dangerous, at least they have a place to live. And if they have money and a place to live and can get food on a daily basis, then at least they have that. But if they leave that to come to a place they can't even get into and lose all the money, they're going to go back having nothing. That's a death sentence. There's a way to do things decent and in order. But if people start circumventing those ways that are decent and in order and humanitarian, we're going to have some bigger problems than the border. But I'll tell you right now, they've said nothing. They're just arguing. It's like no one is doing the responsible thing. See, because instead of arguing and pointing fingers, someone's got to stand up and tell those folks, don't do it. Someone's got to say it. But I hope that you guys who believe in Christ, who know about prophecy, understand what awaits on the other side if they don't do it. If they do not do that and deter this influx of people, not only is that's awful to do, that's a humanitarian crisis, but those children, something is going to happen to them. There are too many children. Anybody in Haiti, encourage your family not to come here. Take the proper channels, but don't just pop up here. You're contending with too much in a very volatile atmosphere. It's not like it used to be. It can be deadly. Hope they consider that. But we all know when it comes to doing heartfelt things, this is not the world for it. For the sake of those children and the ones that truly desire a good opportunity, who are not on the dark side of things, may the Lord grant them favor to grow where they are. May His will be done in their lives. But we know what happens if you persist. If they persist, they're going to unleash something far worse than a border crisis. You know, I'm thinking right now that why in the world would I have a dream of the border and a massive earthquake? What do they have in common? Because situations like those cause people to hate portions of humanity. Do you know that? See, we forget all too quickly that humanity is most precious unto the Father. We forget that Christ is a redeemer. And those situations can cause humans to hate and kill humans. We forget that. We're allowing too many divisive issues to make humanity target humanity. And we know there are tares working among the righteous who would sow evil seeds and cause further hatred. Darkness will not be satisfied until all humanity suffers. That's what Satan really wants. He does not want you to love your brother, but to kill him as Cain did Abel. And in truth, doesn't matter where they're from in the world, they're part of the human family. That's one of the high points of Cain and Abel. Not so much brothers like blood brothers, but humanity, which is why Cain was marked so differently from any other human being, where he could be noticed a long way off, but he was still a human being. And so God said, whoever lays hands upon him, I will require more than what they ever imagined upon their own heads. Even to the one that killed his brother, the condemned one, the one that was cast out, God said, don't hurt him, because if you do, I'll require everything of you. See, that's how our Father thinks about humanity, regardless of what we think. But most of the earth has lost its fear of the living God. They don't care. They're not getting struck down by lightning, so they continue to do things. But those days are going to change. Something close to a vanguard. Well, it's on its way. Before the meteorites, before the greater storms, a whole nother element is coming to kick off the show. That's going to confuse the minds of just about everybody in the beginning. Folks, you're the ones that can make a difference. Why What you say, how you respond, echoes throughout this entire world. You're the ones who are decision makers. You make the difference. You can concur or disagree, and you can further petition. Out of love, you can do that. And if you do, a difference will be made. But if you do nothing, it's almost like you agree with what's happening. And hopefully none of you agree with what's happening. It is irresponsible. It harms people more than it helps. It's not good to gamble your life just to get into another country in which you may or may not make it. It's just not good. But most importantly, the last thing I'll say to you guys for tonight, not only is that issue dangerous, it's dangerous, and it's also a very evil situation. But I hope that you understand that that same situation at the border is manifesting in just about everybody's homes. Now, I'm not going to explain the details about it. I want you to think about that, because when the Lord gives us, the believers, a message, he does so through the happenings of people, of the very thing we look upon. He did that in the Bible from beginning to end. He's doing it right now. And I hope that you can see this situation and also look upon your homes and start making changes. He's speaking to us also. See, the Father just does not do one thing for the world to get all up in arms about, but he speaks to us on a continuous basis. And through humanity and through his creation, he's showing us things. And I'm telling you now, your homes are just like that border. And things are building up right now. And you too have to do the responsible thing, the humane thing, the upright thing, the righteous thing. All things echo for the sakes of our deliverance. It's for our deliverance, or it would not be in the first place. If you were not to be introduced into reality, to be shown light and darkness, and to be plunged in the darkness and redeemed from it, that you would never become one with darkness in the end, then I'm telling you right now, the earth was made for you. These situations in the earth, they're formed for your sakes. Many of you don't know what you are, but I'll tell you this. And it is biblical. You're a judge, and you don't even know it. And unlike an earthly judge who must be presented evidence or evidence for or against whomever he shall see, you are the living evidence. No one will put Exhibit A or B in front of you. You are Exhibit A and B, and you're the judge. You will judge darkness itself, but you're also the evidence. You are to understand the process, the mindset, to see the grace, the long durational grace that darkness has been operating under, has gotten away with everything you think. But I'll tell you now, no darkness has gotten away with nothing. You're a judge. And those who are appointed the higher positions as a judge must go through thicker darkness than the average person. really do hope you understand that. See, because now, if things get mixed up in your mind somehow, if you join the bandwagon of hate, not realizing the process you're being taken through, you're going to be stripped. You're going to be stripped of life itself. You've come too far for that. The Lord is encouraging your hearts, but He's also giving you a warning. And that warning, that unsettling issue that we have spiritually, it's becoming heavier and heavier as the days go on. But that keeps us what? It keeps us going forward. Because in the moments we want to give up, give in, and become like the world, that unsettling feeling rises, and then we say, oh no, I can't do that. See, that's your Father keeping you. Can you see that? Even the unsettling feeling you get inside of the truth you share with no one is keeping you. That's what brings you back to Christ. Whether by love or by the truth of what will come to darkness itself, it keeps you following Christ. And He's keeping you for a reason. But no one has gotten away with anything. A lot of you have this argument they just keep doing and nothing happens to them. And I struggle and I can't really get ahead. You don't want to get ahead like they are, because they have agreed to gain and kill their brother in the process. That's not you. That's what stops you. You're not willing to kill someone to get ahead, but darkness is. Time to see what's happening. They're not getting away with anything. Their holes are being dug deeper. It's called a grave, a sepulcher. Deeper and deeper. They'll have to give an account for everything they've done, but you have been forgiven of what you have done. You have a Redeemer, an advocate with the Father. So for anything anybody would blame you of, Christ would absorb the punishment. He's the only one that paid the price for you, for me, for all of us. It is His way that's established in our hearts. So be careful to keep His way with you. And understand He speaks always. And He's speaking now. And I hope you see how the world uses this border crisis to agitate, to blame, to crucify. But I hope you understand the truth of it. How inhumane it is to do things out of order. Took many years to come up with procedures for immigration. It did. And it was fought tooth and nail. But it also took many years to get you where you are. Don't become silent. You have a voice. And when you speak, speak with your brother and your sisters in mind, not against them, but for their deliverance as well. Because I had to remind you, humanity is the apple of God's eye. Humanity is not the horses, not the cats, not the dogs. Humanity is the apple of God's eye. God sent His only begotten Son. He didn't send Him back for the birds. He didn't send Him back for the fish, for the dogs, for the horses, for the cats. He sent His Son back for us, so we could be redeemed, because we were lost. And if we love the Lord, we also admit that we were damned. So not one of us is better than the other. And all of us have fallen short of the glory of God. All of us have messed up. So let's not play the pious game, but realize what's actually happening and make a difference because you have a voice. You have authorities. You have to do something this time. You have to see it. And you take note that the Lord is speaking. Because your home's the same assault, the same out of order chaos is trying to get right into your door. Folks, I got to go. But I'm going to finish our Bible study section. I can't wait to start with Deuteronomy with you guys. It's a journey. It really is. It's an eye-opener. And I really do hope it blesses you. That's one of the first ones we open up, the Deuteronomy study.